Everyone's in debt, but to whom? Every nation on earth now carries the largest debts in its history. The United States owes over $38 trillion, the European Union about $14 trillion, and Japan nearly $9 trillion. But if every country is drowning in red ink, who's the creditor? Who is everyone actually indebted to? Today, the world's total debt has surpassed $315 trillion, roughly 3 times the size of the entire global economy. But behind these staggering numbers lies a simple and unsettling truth. The world doesn't owe money to anyone in particular. It owes it to itself. That, however, doesn't mean everyone benefits equally. This story begins more than 3 centuries ago in 1694, when England was at war with France and running out of gold. The king turned to wealthy merchants for help. In exchange for future interest payments guaranteed by taxes, they financed the crown. To manage this new arrangement, the Bank of England was born, and for the first time in history, a government could spend money it didn't yet have. That was the birth of the government bond, and with it, the modern financial world. France copied the model, the Netherlands improved it, and the newly independent United States later used it to fund its revolution and westward expansion. Debt was no longer seen as weakness, but as a symbol of trust and power. The ability to borrow became the ability to rule. Empires once conquered land to extract gold. Now they issued bonds to extract interest. The battlefield had moved from fields to balance sheets. Fast forward to today, and debt has become the world's largest export. Every nation borrows, every bank lends, and every citizen, through taxes, savings, and pensions, is both debtor and creditor. Out of America's $38 trillion in debt, roughly half is held by investors outside the government itself. 2/3 of those investors are American institutions, banks, pension funds, insurance companies, and the Federal Reserve. The remaining third, about $9 trillion, is held by foreign governments and investors: Japan, China, the UK, Luxembourg, Belgium, and others. So when people say America owes China, it's true, but only for about 2% of the total. In reality, most of America's debt is owed to America. And this circular system isn't unique to the U.S. Japan lends to the U.S. through treasuries. The U.S. lends to Europe through the IMF. Europe lends to developing nations through the World Bank. And developing countries, in turn, lend back to advanced economies by holding their reserves in Western bonds. It's a global loop of mutual trust, a vast network where everyone holds someone else's IOU, and the entire system survives as long as everyone believes in everyone else's promises. At the center of it all stand the central banks, the architects of modern debt. They don't just manage debt, they create it. Every time a central bank buys government bonds, it prints new money in exchange. One institution's liability becomes another's asset. In today's financial world, there is no such thing as debt-free money. Every dollar, every euro, every digital unit carries an invisible IOU. This system lives entirely on confidence, and when confidence breaks, the illusion dissolves. We've seen it happen before. In Greece, 2010, government debt became unsustainable. Investors panicked, interest rates soared, and the European Central Bank had to intervene. The bailout saved the system, but the cost was immense: austerity, unemployment, and a lost generation. In Argentina, repeated defaults turned debt into a national curse. In Sri Lanka, a shortage of foreign currency led to fuel crises and political collapse. Whenever the system cracks, the once invisible creditors suddenly appear. The IMF, rating agencies, and anonymous bondholders holding nations by the throat. And yet, after every collapse, the cycle restarts. Old debts are restructured, new loans replace the old ones. The machine resets, because in the modern era, government debt isn't designed to be repaid. It's designed to be rolled over. Governments don't aim to eliminate debt. They aim to refinance it indefinitely. Interest payments become the rent charged for stability. And that rent, that ongoing flow of interest, is what keeps the global economy breathing, like a shark that must keep swimming to stay alive. That's why the United States will never truly pay off its $38 trillion debt, and why Japan, with debt exceeding 250% of its GDP, still borrows at near zero interest. Investors aren't waiting to be repaid, they're waiting to renew the deal. Because to them, government debt isn't a liability, it's an asset, the foundation of modern finance. Banks use it as collateral. Pension funds rely on it. Central banks treat it as money. If governments ever tried to erase their debt, the entire global financial system would collapse. Paying it off would destroy the very thing that keeps the economy functioning. So instead, governments keep borrowing, not recklessly, but rhythmically. Debt becomes the heartbeat of capitalism, pulsing through every pension, mortgage, and market on Earth. And that's why when politicians talk about balancing the budget or paying off the national debt, they're selling an illusion. The goal isn't to eliminate debt, it's to sustain belief in it. Because when confidence fades, numbers stop mattering. Interest rates spike. Markets panic, and the system built on rolling promises grinds to a halt. That's the hidden truth of sovereign debt. The plan was never to pay it back. The plan is to keep the world believing it will. And when we say we owe it to ourselves, that's only half true. Interest payments don't flow evenly through society. They flow upward, from workers and taxpayers to the investors and institutions that hold the debt. Debt isn't just a transfer between nations, it's a transfer between classes. That's why global inequality rises alongside global indebtedness. The system rewards those who own debt and punishes those who merely pay it. Creditors aren't villains, and debtors aren't victims. They're both parts of the same machine. The danger begins when the machine runs out of fuel, when new borrowing can no longer sustain old promises. Because at that moment, the question, "Who's the creditor?" stops being abstract and starts being personal. At the top of this global pyramid, there's no single villain. It isn't China. It isn't Wall Street. It isn't the IMF. It's all of them, and us. The modern financial system has turned debt into money itself. Governments issue it, banks multiply it, investors trade it, and citizens depend on it. Debt once meant bondage. Today it means balance. But if that balance ever breaks, we'll remember what debt truly is. A promise that can't be kept forever.